Welcome everyone to episode 3 of Early Birds. Today we have very special guests, Alex and Richard, co-founders of Xcavate. We'll be discussing how blockchain is changing real estate, and I'm very excited about this discussion. So gentlemen, welcome to the show. Real estate is a topic I'm very passionate about, and obviously you guys as well, so I'm very excited to talk about it. But maybe let's start with some quick introductions first. So maybe Alex, what's your background and how did you start your journey in Web3?
Well, my journey in Web3 was started with Richard, really, a couple of years ago. I have a property-based background, so I've been in property for the last 22, 23 years. I've met Richard through some really bad golf that we used to play together. And that golf led us into the wonderful world of Web3, which I must say, I don't know a lot about. I know about our product and I know about property, but Richard is the technical guy, and he sold me on an idea, and it led us to where we are today. So
golf, yeah. I've heard fun stories of rounds of golfs. So Richard, since you are a bit more into Web3, so how did you guys end up, having this idea?
For me, it was a lot further back. So my sort of Web3 journey started when I can go way, way back. And I went to engineering college, did an apprenticeship, ended up going to Coca-Cola, worked at Coca-Cola for 10 years, left there, started my own business. And then I've been building Web 2 stuff ever since. And that's how I got into Web 3, because one of my Web 2 clients had been buying crypto, raved about it being the big thing. And he'd made a lot of his money during the .com boom. So I knew that he was onto something, but I didn't actually believe in the crypto stuff. I actually believed in the underlying technology behind it. And then when I heard about NFTs, suddenly there was the light bulb moment. And that's when I had a chat with Alex about fractionalized ownership of real estate.
What's your background in real estate? So did you have a passion for it before, or was it just, out of convenience because you knew Alex and this?
When I was at Coca-Cola, we used to do shift works. I was a technical operator on the lines. I worked my way up into management and ended up launching this big multi-million-pound automated warehouse. But when I was there, I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year to save up the money to buy my first flat. And I bought a 2-bedroom flat, rented the other room out to a friend of mine, then moved to another house up in Bengio with a friend, bought my own house, moved again. And I kept on moving and just, I've never invested in real estate because it was just out of my reach. It was always a huge expense. I'd seen other people do it. I just didn't feel like it was something I could do. I would have loved to have done it. The way I did it was I just moved into a place that needed a bit of work, did most of the work myself because I was, I wasn't afraid of doing that. I've literally done it that way. So I know that Alex has probably got way more experience in the world of real estate. And I think that's why it works, because I know about real estate. I understand it. I've done a lot of research regarding the industry, but my speciality is problem solving. Alex gives me these real world problems and it's like, well, okay, I know the technical side of things. How can we make this tech work as simply as possible, as easy as possible for the end user? And I think that to me is a philosophy I've used in Web 2 and I'm now using in Web 3.
Sounds like a good match when you can complete each other. So Alex, if the topic obviously is real estate, and I think also for our listeners here, maybe if you want to talk about the entire business itself, right? Because it's such a broad business. But what was your expertise? So were you more on construction or on making deals or on larger projects? What's a bit, the feel we get here?
My history has always been in the sales and the letting side of property. So worked in real estate offices, estate agency, as we call it here in the UK, but for the rest of the world, effectively just selling real estate. I sell everything from an apartment to multi-million-pound homes, land, commercial property, and we do rentals as well. Big on new builds. So from a property side, what we wanted to do was, one, make the process easier. Here in the UK, buying a property is really, really tiresome and laborious. And it takes so much time that people lose the will to live in the middle of trying to actually buy a home. And it should be one of the most exciting times of your life. It's your biggest purchase that you ever make, probably. So for me, it's how can I sell more property personally as a business, but how can we make property more available to the end user and to investors throughout the world. And my dream with this is to have someone over in the Far East where investing in one of our properties in the UK, and then going the other way whereby we're selling property in maybe Melbourne or Sydney that otherwise isn't accessible to your everyday person.
So one of the topics I hear is obviously accessibility, and I would also say gatekeeping. Real estate obviously being a business that has been around for quite some time, probably one of the oldest businesses, right? What are other issues that you see in the industry, right? Because usually it needs a lot to have change. So what are the challenges that you see coming in?
Well, the last couple of years here in the UK, especially, we've had credit crisis, we've had Brexit. All of those things have brought big problems in the financial sector. So people obtaining finance now, mortgages or loans, is really, really difficult. Plus, not just being difficult compared to 2 years ago, the interest rates are much higher. So borrowing is more difficult and more expensive. So again, how can we enable someone to purchase a property without having to obtain finance? That's the biggest challenge we face in the property sector. It's not always easy with the legal procedures of buying a property. There's more and more problems surrounding that now, but finance has always been the leading factor in whether real estate moves or whether it stays still.
Mm-hmm. So before we go into fractionalization, right? Because now we talk about owning your own home, right? Which can also be seen as an investment, obviously. But if we have a topic like cash flow, right? You want to be able to invest in large objects that have high ROI. So how are deals typically done for, let's say, apartment complexes with like 50 plus apartments, or even commercial real estate?
So two existing ways is if someone's buying commercial or residential real estate, whether it's to live in or to rent out, if it's purely for investment, they're probably having to put down around about 40% of the price of the individual property to then be able to finance the remaining 60%. Commercial, probably around about the same. And that will, with a rental return, will give them around about 4 to 5% return on their investment. But that's a big chunk of money to put down. And the risk of having another mortgage to investors isn't always what they're looking for. So they don't want always to obtain the finance.
How is this done by institutional players? Because I would assume the larger you are, you have more financial means, but also the relationship to banks becomes a bit different, right? If we talk maybe, Richard, about, tokenization of real estate, right? Would this also be something that could give accessibility to those, billion-dollar deals that we see, but most of us will never be able to access?
Certainly. I mean, what we're trying to do is democratize and empower the smaller developers, small to medium-sized developers, because often they're a much better investment because they're building in areas which are known to be sought after to live in, with really good transport links. And if the average developer in our sort of market would be, say, someone building 9 apartment blocks or 20, 30 apartment blocks. So they own the land, they've got planning permission on the land. So it's very easy for us to check the title. So the way it works is we identify who they are as an individual through what's called digital identifiers, DIDs. And there's the verifiable credentials. So Kilt, who are part of the Polkadot ecosystem, have done an amazing job creating this digital identity protocol. There's no need for us to reinvent it because it's already there. Mm-hmm. So all we're doing is we're leveraging that technology. They've partnered with Deloitte. So Deloitte have got all these credentials. So they verify your passport or your driving license once, and then you can reuse that credential time and time again. So once we've got that baked into our protocol, so once we know who an individual is, and we do that for their business as well. So that's KYB. So there's KYC, know your customer, anti-money laundering. That's all done at the same time. And then KYB, which is for a real estate developer, they actually create an SPV for each project. That's the way it normally works. And then we can check that SPV that owns the land. And then it normally works in at like a third and a third and a third. So the land is worth, say, £1 million. The build cost is about £1 million, and then they try and aim for about 20 to 30% profit. And there's obviously a little bit of flexibility there because things tend to move both from a land price point of view and real estate, depending on the interest rates and whatnot. So the idea is that we can get investment or investors direct into both the build aspect, so lending the money to the developers, and then the developers have the opportunity to then mint and fractionalize each property in, say, 100 fractions, and then repay the loan of the build if they've gone down that route. They don't have to, but if they have, they can repay that loan. So it's very, very easy and simple from a developer point of view, but it also brings in new developments very quickly and easily for an investor. For instance, there's a fantastic development near us in Hertford called Lee Wolf. There's a massive company called British Land, and British Land are the traditional world of developments, and they create these huge, great complexes with restaurants, bars, office complexes, residential. So Lee Wolf is like a miniature version of that in our local town. And what we're going to do is offer that in a fractionalized way, so people can buy a percentage of a rental property that's rented out, really good sort of stable yields, good rental occupancy levels. Because at the end of the day, there's companies out there like Realty and other companies that are focused on the ROI, the rental element. But if it's not being rented, if it's rented every 70% of the time or whatever, that's a massive loss. If it doesn't go up in capital, if the capital amount doesn't go up because no one wants to buy that property, then that's a massive loss. So there's a number of factors you need to look at, and that's what we're trying to build, is to give investors all of the information they need to make the right choice for them. And that may be they might want a little more of a riskier investment in another part of the world, or they might want a stable investment in a place like UK, just outside of London, or Manchester, or Leeds.
If we take one step back, right? Because the tokenization part, so you talked about SPV, so special purpose vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So you correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be pretty sure. But so you basically have the ownership of the building or of the land, of the asset in the SPV, and then you fractionalize the SPV, or you create nodes, and then that's what you tokenize, or how does it work in that sense?
Right, okay, to go back. So we've identified who the developer is, who the company is, and then we do a check on the asset itself. So let's say it's an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. It's going to be rented out. Once the property is built, the apartment is in effect minted as 100 NFTs. And then before it gets listed onto the marketplace, there's a number of checks that we do through what's called an oracle, which is a way for the blockchain to talk to the real world. So we're looking at title deed. So who owns the title deed? We're looking at planning permission, the property undergone all the right checks, and has it been completed and signed off? And then price. So the price is a bit subjective because at the end of the day, obviously, there's certain characteristics for each property. So we look at those characteristics in the same way that Zillow or Rightmove look at the property and put it on their marketplace. We're exactly the same. We're taking data points and we're building up a picture of 20 similar properties in a similar geographic area and saying, right, okay, this is the upper limit, this is the lower limit. Does the real estate developers estimation of the value of that property fit between that limit? And then what is the potential rental income? And again, there's an upper and lower band, and where does that sit? So those are the checks that are done. The property can't be listed on the marketplace until all of those checks are complete. And then once it's on the marketplace, the status changes to listed. The potential investors, let's say we put the property on the marketplace 6 p.m. UK time. What we're going to expect is that obviously it will go viral. There'll be thousands of people around the world looking at it at different times. By the morning, we'll come in. Hopefully, all of the NFTs have been sold. If that happens, there's another oracle that then creates the SPV for the individual real estate. And then there's a transfer of ownership from the real estate developers SPV to the real estate investors SPV. So that all happens automatically based on certain criteria. If there's an issue, for instance, and only 80% of the NFTs are sold, what often happens is that a developer will want to retain some of the ownership of properties so they can buy them themselves. So that will complete the process. If that wasn't the case, what happens is we'll set a time limit, let's say 30 days, and then if the property isn't fully sold, then the NFTs are then burnt, the NFT holders then get their money back, and then the property developer will have to rethink what they do about that property.
From the perspective you said, so maybe to Alex, those checks, if you talk about real world asset tokenization, always the first question is, does the asset exist? Are the pictures real? Because AI, right? Big topic. And if you are interested, you want to do your own due diligence, or you want to have some material to inform yourself and to judge the valuation of the property, because as you mentioned, it's very subjective. So how do you manage those checks? Because I imagine, if you have assets all over the world, I'm not assuming you guys just, travel everywhere and check it, right?
I mean, in the UK, it's fairly easy to check. We have a history of the properties, and locally we're able to easily go online and evaluate a property based on the area, based on how many rooms it's got, based on, is it detached, is it an apartment, what size is it? A good example of that is something like Rightmove or Zoopla, whereby they have like a property checker on them that you can check the price of your own individual property, just to value your own individual property. So from a UK perspective, it's very easy, and we're using the same information that big websites, land registry, HMRC use to check the values of the property. When we move into other districts, into other continents or other countries, yes, we're going to have to source the information and use different systems as we integrate our Xcavate into other countries, but here it's a very easy thing to do and check, and we'll have a kind of leniency on the price of the property, so that once the property is listed, we know that it could be 3 to 5% up or down, but it's within the suitable range of that property. So we're not expecting a property of 300,000 to be put on the market at 350,000 just because the developer wants more money. It won't happen, and we won't allow it to happen, or the system won't allow it to happen.
Interesting. So this is now obviously if you purchase a fraction of the property itself, and then there's always, the question of, okay, what if you want to sell it? But obviously then you create a marketplace. So, and usually, it's not the same. It's different if you talk about, other real world asset tokenization like cars or other tangible things. So that's very interesting. If we talk about, we talked about loans before, right? So financing real estate, not owning it. What's the challenge with financing real estate in that sense? Because I would assume, not a lot of people get access, but what are the challenges you see, and how do you expect to solve them?
Yeah, I mean, from our side of things, we are looking for not just small investment, but big investment. Anyone can invest in the properties. So our marketplace itself is someone that may just have $10,000 or 10,000 euros, for instance, and wants to invest in property. We're not looking to find a way to help someone finance. We're actually trying to push finance out the door. We don't want loans. We don't want mortgages, and make the process easier for people to buy property with as little money as they've got. So at the end of the day, if someone wants to invest in property and they've got £10,000, at the moment, they can't do that. With us, they can, and they can buy a fraction. Or it could be 10 NFTs, and then they can see that on their phone. They can see their investments. They can see which individual properties they've invested in, which is great. And they can see how that's doing. Going back to your question about the marketplace, we will be selling only new build properties. But once we've started selling and we're active, the second-hand marketplace comes back, because those people that have bought NFTs off of us, we'll be able to relist those NFTs back onto the marketplace, and they will be sold back into the market or to people that have existingly invested in the properties themselves. So it makes it much easier and a much quicker process.
It's an interesting thought, right? Because if you look at accounting, which it's not my favorite topic, so don't quote me on anything I'm going to say. But if you look at accounting and valuations for corporations that own real estate, this is a big topic, right? The more real estate you own, and depending on how you value it, right? Obviously, you need to pay taxes and everything. So how do you see that change, right? Because if you create a marketplace where basically, if I own an NFT of a 2-bedroom apartment, right? And I say, hey, I believe it's worth less or more than what price it was issued at, right? Then I create a new market or a new price for all the other NFT holders, right?
No, that's where our protocol stands out from the crowd, because the traditional thinking is you have a property, you create an NFT, and then you fractionalize that NFT with not NFTs, but with a currency, a cryptocurrency in effect, because it's not individual, it's not unique. It's basically just fractionalizing that one NFT into a number of equal parts. Our system doesn't do that. What it allows is each NFT holder to dictate what they feel that NFT is worth within a set upper and lower limit. So that is on. So if you want to sell your NFT quickly, obviously you look at the market and say the upper band is this, the lower band is that. Other NFT holders are selling for this. I'll go just below that because I want mine to sell quicker. However, if you're not in a hurry, you might want to sell it at a slightly higher rate. We can also automate it. So imagine if you wanted to have a strategy where if the yield got below a certain point, it would activate a listing so you could list onto the marketplace straight away. We're also looking at offering the NFTs to the people that are renting the apartments. So they've got a vested interest in that apartment. They can lower their rents and then they can increase the number of NFTs over time. Because at the end of the day, if someone likes the apartment, they might want to buy it at some stage. If all the NFT holders vote, they can sell the apartment to whoever. That's the beauty of it. They've got full control. All we're doing is facilitating that control and that information that helps them make those decisions. So each on the rental side, once the NFTs are sold, the apartment gets automatically allocated to a letting agent or a managing agent who manages that property. They obviously charge fees, traditionally 8 to 10%, and then the NFT holders would get the net income after taxes.
Of course, yeah.
But if that letting agent didn't perform as per their charter, and we would make sure that they are registered with the association in the region that they're in, then the NFT holders can vote them out and a new letting agent is actually appointed. So all the power, all the information is there for the investor, and we're not managing that process for them, we're facilitating it. And that's the big difference between us and every other protocol out there. Because a lot of others are just based on a smart contract. But we knew if we're going to do this properly, we need to tailor it to the market and tailor it to the niche that we're dealing with, which is new build investment property, both starting out with residential and then we're going to move into commercial once we've dominated the market in the region.
I totally agree. I mean, you create an entire new market, right? Because then you can basically start almost doing arbitrage with real estate. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, in my opinion, a fantastic idea. Which is also great, right? Because you create this more dynamic market and you attract more liquidity to the market, which is obviously also great, right? Well,
part of the reason we're doing this, I've got kids. There's no way my kids are going to be able to afford their own property without help. So how do we do that? Well, we can buy fractions of property, invest it for them. I mean, it's the great thing in the UK, because our system creates the SPV and the NFT holder has a share in that specific SPV that owns the property. You're actually buying a share of a company. And it's actually very tax efficient in the UK, and I'm sure it is around the other parts of the world. We've got meetings with our legal team about all of this. But from an investor point of view, if you're a grandfather or a parent of a child, you want to build some NFTs for different properties all around the world for your children, you can gift those and you don't have to pay the stamp duty that's associated with buying and selling property. So, it's a really efficient way. I'm not a tax advisor, I'm not a financial advisor.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it makes sense, and we are the target audience. I don't live in a huge mansion. I don't have pots of money. If I've got 10, 20, 30,000 and I'd like to invest it for my kids, what do I do with it? Where do I put it? From a financial perspective, any financial advisor will tell you, diversify your investments. So all we're saying is, look, we're going after 1% of new build properties. In the UK, 220,000 properties were built last year. So 1%, 2,200 properties. In reality, our sites are set on about 361 properties. That will equate to about 108 million in total value locked. That will equate to about just over $1 million in fees that will go back into the treasury. However, it doesn't just sit there, because my big thing is that real estate affects the environment massively. So from an environmental perspective, about 30 to 40% of all of the global emissions are down to real estate. Now, that doesn't mean all of the construction is down to those emissions. There's about 30% of that, 30 to 40%. However, if we can encourage and incentivize real estate developers with maybe better rates for lending for builds, if they're more environmentally friendly, which we can check, then that's great. And if they've had loans before, then again, they get better rates. That will help our community build value in our system. And then, we're not like British Land, who just have shareholders. We'll be a community of people that are vested because either they want utility in real estate, or they want the investment for longer term, or whatever their motivations are. But yeah, that's what we're building. We're building a community.
At any time when you have a traditional industry and Web3 connecting, right? I always like to ask the question, do you expect the traditional industry to adapt to Web3? Or do you also put more focus on, hey, there's a lot of people in Web3. Do you want to have them enter the real estate market, right? So maybe, Alex, if you can give a bit of a distinction here, or what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say a mix of both, being honest. I think people traditionally with a Web3 background, or people that are already in that space, will find it really easy to use and a great tool for investing. But on the other side of the coin, we actually want people that are in the real estate market themselves that want to find an easier way to purchase property. And then going further, actually, we're trying to open the door to people that haven't ever invested in property before and want to get into that space. And obviously, Web3, blockchain, it's all happening in the background. It's a world that but it's happening around us. We're going to have to adapt because it's going to get bigger. So anybody that is thinking of investing in property or thinking of investing their money at the moment, I think this is a great way to do it, and to give them the security of it being real estate, because everybody looks at real estate and goes, well, it's probably the most secure investment in the world. So I think the market for it is absolutely huge. And for me, as someone who's in the real estate sector, I see it just opening the world up for everybody. And the more we can make it accessible to everybody, then that can only be a good thing. And it helps developers. It helps investors, and it's a great way to purchase property, and fun as well at the same time, because it's at your fingertips.
It's also a great way to sell property, right? Which is also, I mean, it's always, everyone is always trying to buy, right? But selling can also be very difficult.
Yeah. From my side of it, as someone who's worked in this space, trying to sell property, even in the toughest markets, trying to sell property, this is a wonderful new tool and a mechanism to enable a developer, or me, or us, or the community to sell property. It's fantastic.
Well, just looking at the stats, so the fractional real estate market around about sort of 3 or 4, maybe 5 months ago was something like $350 million. That's sort of doubling every 6 to 9 months. So if you extrapolate that out, in 5 years' time, you're going to be looking at a market between 128 to $2 billion. That's eye-watering. But, when you consider real estate generally is like 378 trillion, it's a drop in the ocean. I think good ideas are all about timing and how we deliver. And we've built a fantastic technical team. We've got brilliant knowledge from the industry through Alex and his network. We've got great legal team, and it's just about how we get to market. And that's the beauty of partnering with the Polymech team, is that we're looking to now offer our idea up as an opportunity to get in at the ground level and invest in us, in the project, and help us build this community and build out our dream. I mean, I'm so excited about it. You wouldn't believe, but
I can see it. I can see it.
I'm glad it comes across.
I truly appreciate the ambition. So if you look into the present and like, where are you now, and what are the next, let's say 6 months looking like for you guys to basically move and start with a lot of change, right?
So we've built the MVP and we've launched on the Tansy network. So we've launched a testnet, which we've operated for the last sort of few weeks really successfully. And that was amazing. So the Polkadot SDK substrate and everything else is fantastic, but it's quite complex. And the idea of creating a collator set, that's really, really complex. And then there's loads of other things like indexing. And so Tansy have come up with a really simple solution, and we are an app chain. So we're probably one of the best use cases for their system. So we've worked very closely with them. We spun up an app chain within hours, and then the idea is that we're iterating over that. We're actually launching a new DApp, which is our real exchange DApp, which is focused on how to help more community projects with environmental, ecology, and social and housing projects all around the world. So a percentage of the fees generated over time with Xcavate will go into that to make that project work, or facilitate smaller projects all around the world raising funds. But again, that will be governed by the community and by voting with the Xcavate token. And then in the early part of next year, we're going to be launching on the Polymech platform. That will raise some funds to then cure our own power chain on the Polkadot network. And then we'll launch mainnet Q2, realistically, probably back end of Q2 2024. And then the idea is that we'll run in the UK for 6 months, establish ourselves over the next 6 to 12 months in the UK for residential property, and then look to go onto region 2. And that might be Australia, there might be Middle East, Far East. We're just looking at all of the stats at the moment and working out the best route to market for those areas. And then we'll come back to region 1 and look at commercial property, hotels, so small bespoke hotels, looking for finance to build. People can invest, buy the NFTs, they get a rental income, or alternatively, they might choose to stay in the hotel, and then they can utilize the business that way.
The business of endless opportunities, right? Absolutely. It never ends. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Usually at the end of a podcast, we have like a very short segment, 30 seconds. So if you have something that people need to check out, follow social media, whatever it is, now is your time to shine.
Look, at the end of the day, we're starting out our social media community. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. We've just started a Telegram channel. So yeah, Xcavate or Xcavate Official is the Twitter handle. Just follow us, engage with us. If you've got any questions about any aspect of the project, we want to hear from you. It's about building in all different aspects from all different people all over the world. I've got a really great team of people that are helping us build this, from Africa, from Nepal, from South America, from South London, all over the place. So we are looking to appeal to everyone from all over the world. That's the great thing about Web3, is that it's colorblind. It's a great mix, and yeah, I'm just excited.
Likewise, I am as well. It was fantastic. Thank you both for being here today and sharing your expertise. Let me know next time you go on a round of golf. Happy to join. I haven't played in the UK yet, so that's still on my bucket list.
It's a long time of year at the moment. It's a bit wet.
Yeah, let's wait until next year when we launched Xcavate, and you can come to a match.
We will do that. But yeah, this has been an interesting conversation. Thank you so much for spotlighting a bit the world of real estate, but also, the potential it has to change and how blockchain technology and Web3, can take part in it. And yeah, to our listeners, stay curious. Join us next time on Early Birds. Thank you so much for being here.